We're Ace Comicals. My name's Greg, and today I'm joined by my co-host Rahul. Let's get started. Hi guys, welcome to Ace Comicals episode number 33. So, today we have no Leon, but we do have Ray back. Say hi, Ray.
Good evening, Greg. How you doing?
I'm good. How have you been?
Yeah, I've been better, but I've also been pretty good. The reason I was away for a little while is that I had some family drama to take care of. So it turns out my dad was quite ill for a little while. So I've just been home dealing with that. He's all right now, but I just like to express my thanks to everybody who was there for me when I needed some support during that, and especially to you guys for taking the reins in my absence. So I've been listening to the episodes that you did without me, and they were really good. I'm really, really proud of you guys for taking up the stead. So that's that.
No problem, dude.
Yeah, it sounded really good. And then aside from that, I had a much deserved holiday, if I don't say so myself. And then I've also recently been to the Res Video Game Expo, and also, on top of that, seen Method Man Redman in concert just the other day, which was a ridiculous gig because the doors opened at 9, and then they came on at 12:30 the next day in the morning. And it was great. The opening act and the guests were amazing, and they kept the energy up for like a good 3 hours before they came on. But like it's the first time in my life I've ever left before the actual concert ended. I think we left just as the encores were starting, and I was like, I have to get home. It was like 2:30 in the morning, and I had to take the night tube home, and that's always a mission, and got rolled in at home at like 3:30, 4 o'clock. It was just ridiculous. So a great weekend, but man, I'm tired.
Give everyone the chance to get lit before they come on stage.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. People were mashed. It was brilliant.
Well, you would be if you had to wait till midnight and the doors opened at 8 o'clock. It's like 4 hours of getting mash time.
I mean, I was stone cold sober, and Leon came with me. We both hadn't had anything to drink that entire day. We'd gone to Resd in the morning just to, attend some panels, listen to some speakers. And then I went home to have like a quick 1 hour nap to, just refresh myself before this gig. And yeah, we didn't have a single drink all night, which is probably bad because I didn't have any water the entire night either, and I was like dying by the end of it. But yeah, it was worth it in the end.
No, that's cool. That's cool. So what I've been up to, I mean, obviously you guys have been tuning into the podcast, so not as much as Ray to talk about, but what I have done is I finally watched Valerian. Because that's now on Netflix, and I thought it was really cool, and now I need to buy the book even more, because I think me and Leon were talking about this last time, about how we need to read more French comics, and now I've watched Valerian, I'm like, okay, yeah, need to buy the book. I really liked it because it hit me in that Fifth Element spot. It kind of hits that Fifth Element spot, and it was very, for me, it felt like watching Fifth Element. And I like Fifth Element, and it's that kind of fun watch for me, where it's all like crazy alien races and nutso space stuff going on and weird things, weird ancient stuff and whatever. And I really enjoyed it for that. I thought it was great. It's a good chunk of sci-fi, and it's a fun watch. I enjoyed it.
I mean, you mentioned Fifth Element, but I think I've heard that Valerian was a big influence on the Fifth Element to begin with. And it was directed by Luc Besson, right? Both of these films, Fifth Element and Valerian, so it's kind of come full circle. It kind of makes sense that they both go hand in hand. Yeah,
it would make sense that way. Yeah, and you can probably see one influence in the other, like the Fifth Element film influencing the way Valerian film was put together, and maybe the Valerian comic influencing Fifth Element. But I'll probably be able to talk more about that once I've actually read the book, which I've not done yet. But I need to do. The other thing I've been doing is I bought Ni no Kuni 2 this weekend.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, I never played the first one. And it's just, I don't know where it came from, but I wanted a game to play, and I was on the cusp of buying Far Cry 5. And then I thought, yeah, but it's like another shooter. And I like the other Far Cry games, and it's Far Cry 5 had like this whole interesting aura about it because of the political things they were doing in the game, but apparently they welshed out a little bit, and it could have been much more of a statement than it actually was. And in the end, it's just another straight up Far Cry game, so it's like a different sandbox, but same tools kind of thing. And I was thinking, maybe I can wait for that to come down in price before I buy that. And then
definitely.
I remembered that Ni no Kuni 2 had been out, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. It's Studio Ghibli. It's, it's got that kind of like magic and whimsy about it. It's a JRPG, which is a bit of a red flag sometimes for me because they are massive time sinks, and I'm thinking, am I going to get invested in this? And I do find sometimes, I get really excited for the first like so many hours of gameplay of JRPG, and then I don't know whether it's because the game story has pacing issues, or whether that's because for me it feels like that might be a common thing among some of the JRPGs I've played, that the story itself has like pacing issues, and it gets to this point where it becomes a trudge. Or I don't know, but something kind of my interest sort of wanes, and there's nothing that keeps me hooked and keeps me biting to the end. But at the moment, I'm only a few hours into Ni no Kuni 2, but at the moment it just like it seems to be evenly spread out. So there's not one bit that feels, it constantly feels like you're moving forward towards your goal. It doesn't feel like you're sitting in a swamp somewhere hammering bad guys to get powerful enough to do something. It's not like there's no grind to it so far. There's no pacing issues, as I would put it, with this game so far as I am in it. And it's really, really good and really enjoyable, and it's got that Ghibli magic. And yeah, Sophie's watching me play it as well because she enjoys it and she likes the aesthetic because she likes the Ghibli films. So yeah, it's a great game.
Yeah, the first one was a big thing back in, I think it was like 2010, 2011 when it came out on the PS3. And people were buzzing about it because it was a genuine collaboration between Studio Ghibli and I think, is it Level 5 who
it is,
did
yes.
Yeah. And the fact that it had like all these, I think it was Miyazaki himself was actually involved in it, and Joe Hisaishi, who did some of the music for many of the Ghibli films. So like it had this whole package going on, and I picked it up quite early on. I mean, you talk about your enthusiasm for JRPGs waning. You're talking to the king of like sampling the entrees of like loads of different games. Like I fell off the first Ni no Kuni really hard. I love the style of it, but it had that thing where every cutscene just like slowed the pace of the game down, and I never really got that far. And I do regret it because I hear really good things about it. The second one I've heard really good things about, so I'll give it a go once it's cheaper. And I think, as you were saying about Far Cry 5, I think you made the right choice about putting that on the back burner.
Yeah.
Because it will come down in price eventually.
Yeah.
And I've heard mixed things about, like, just about that game in general.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you can always get to that at some other point.
Do you find what I find about there being pacing issues with JRPGs sometimes? Do you ever find that?
Oh, 100%. I think the opening for so many JRPGs that I've played, it's in the design of the game where you start off weak and you slowly build up your skills, whereas I'm the kind of person I like to just be thrown into stuff. I think this is reflected in my taste in comics as well, where I don't like so much exposition. I don't like slow build-ups. It's the same reason I don't really like fantasy novels, because it's just too wordy for me, too much plotting exposition, which really, I guess it works if you're invested in it, but I don't have the patience for that stuff these days. I like to just be thrown directly in. And like, fair play to the people who can sit down and play 100 hours of a JRPG, like, in a go. Because I kind of admire that, and I'm really jealous of people who have that attention. I just rarely do. And I think the last one, which is a big rarity in like the last couple of decades for me, is Persona 5, which the way it's built up just dragged me through, because it's constantly shifting. It's like you mentioned with Ni no Kuni, it's constantly changing its gears.
That's it, yeah. See, I fell off Persona 5, but that was for other reasons. Like that was more, I think that was down to my general mood at the time. Like I was getting home from work and I just wasn't feeling like doing anything.
Oh yeah, Persona 5 was a slog towards the end. Like, and again, it's not even necessarily the game's fault. It's just I was itching to play something new. I think Nier Automata had come out around the same time, and I wanted to finish that off. And just it always happens.
And then I got Crash Bandicoot. And the way I equate the difference between playing the two is like being offered the option of buying takeout pizza and having it delivered to your door fresh, hot and delicious, and being given the ingredients and told to make the pizza yourself. Even though that might taste better in the end when you make it yourself and be less greasy and better for you, you're going to opt for the takeout.
You have to put work in. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I get it.
Yeah. So if you understand my metaphor, then you know what I'm getting at.
That makes perfect sense, Greg.
Yeah.
It's a tasty pizza. You should finish that game.
I'm going to.
Okay.
But so Ni no Kuni 2, great game. Other than that, I've been playing a bit more Magic again because I've sort of fallen hard for the cardboard crack, as I call it. Again, but not in a way that I'm spending loads and loads and loads of money on it or anything. But, you know, it's become a sort of main hobby of mine again, which I'm quite enjoying because it's you sit down at a table and you play games with people and it's analog and it's away from screen time and it makes you think because you have to use your head for strategy and things like that. And you have to, you have to work with what you've got in your hand. So when you pull cards off the top of your deck, you look at your cards and you have to work with what's there. Because that's, and you've got to build a play out of what you've got in your hand, and you've got to like
roll with the punches.
Exactly, yeah. So you've got to be able to react, and you've got to be able to think forward as well about what's going to happen next turn and things like that with how the opponent's playing, what they might or might not have in their hand, and sort of stuff like that. So it's quite cool for that. I like it because it's that kind of thinking, that analytical thinking or whatever.
Yeah, in the same way that I admire people who can play JRPGs, I really do admire people who can like develop like plays and strategies with randomized card games. Like the building the deck is always the most daunting part for me with these games. I don't mind playing stuff like Hearthstone where it's kind of randomized and you can pick a preset build or whatever, and the rules are relatively simple. But Magic has always daunted me. Like anything that has more than 2 or 3 levels of logic, I can't handle it. It's the same reason I don't really like playing chess, for example. And I've been hearing this example a lot where I've recently been playing a game called Into the Breach, which I don't know if you've heard of. It's like sort of a mecha top-down isometric strategy game. Yeah. But in the way that you described, every hand is a new kind of puzzle to solve. You have to roll with the punches that comes with your new hand and whatever your opponent has done that particular round. There's not so much forward thinking required, or at least on a low level gameplay, because the way the enemies react Into the Breach are kind of randomized, and you have to deal with each circumstance as its own little mini puzzle each round.
With Magic,
and that really works for me. But sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, with Magic, you know what's in your deck because you've built the deck, so you know what you have a chance of and what you don't have a chance of getting, and you know what each card does, and hopefully if you've built your deck correctly, you'll know which cards work well together and how you should play those cards when they come out in that combination. But it's learning that, basically. And when you build a deck, you usually build it around a theme for a certain rule or exploit or something like that. And you basically, you work... The way you build, I can't get into it too much because we'll take up too much time, but the way you get into it is you decide on a win condition. So you decide on what's going to help you win. So like, I will win by siphoning my opponent's life and putting it onto my life total. So you will build a deck around a rule called lifelink, which is like makes basically a vampire deck or something like that. Decks with creatures that siphon life from other creatures and things like that, which give you a life lead, and you build it that way.
Yeah, like vampiric creatures and whatnot.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. But I see what you mean. Yeah, I understand.
That's exactly the level of depth that I just can't handle. But the thing I do love about Magic the Gathering is all the pretty pictures and the whole, like, just the mood and the tone of the whole game and everything. I think that's pretty rad. So, yeah. I admire you for being into it as much as you are.
Yeah, it's a fun game. And it's not actually that hard to pick up. Anyway, on to the comics, which are the purpose of the podcast. I'm going to start by just saying a little piece about how much I loved Batman number 44. Because Batman number 44 was great. And the whole book, as you know, as I've talked about before, Catwoman and Batman, Bruce and Selina are getting married. And we've all been invited to the wedding. And this book it came with two gorgeous covers. Like twin covers, basically. One, which was Bruce Wayne standing in front of the mirror wearing a suit, like a wedding suit, like his groom outfit. And he's looking in the mirror, and staring back at him is Batman. And the other cover is Selina Kyle wearing a wedding dress, looking in a mirror, staring back at her is Catwoman. On the bottom of the cover, you've got, with the Catwoman one, it says something borrowed, something blue. And the Batman one is something old, something new. So it's the old rhyme about weddings, you know, the tradition. Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. And it's a really nice twin set of covers. Like, as soon as I was surprised. As soon as I saw that they were doing the two covers, I was like, I've got to have both of them. I didn't know if my local comic shop would have both of them, because I didn't know how it would work. But I got there and they had them both side by side. Oddly enough, they had like tons and tons of the Catwoman one left and none of the Batman one. But like, when I look at the two, the Catwoman one's actually the more interesting one. It's got like way more detail in it. It looks way more sort of... It's a better composed picture as far as I'm concerned. Like, the Batman one's pretty plain looking. There's not a lot going on. The room looks pretty stark. But with the Catwoman one, you've got more detail, and it's just a beautiful cover. So I like the Catwoman side better. And yeah, they're both... It's a great story. The whole story in this book is Catwoman shopping for her wedding dress. But she's not doing it the conventional way, because she's a master thief. So, go figure. Instead, she decides to wake up in the middle of the night, go into the sewers, and go under the dress shop, break into the dress shop from under the dress shop, try on dresses and drink champagne from the bottle, and then steal the dress. And take it back to the manor. Like, she gets back all before Batman wakes up, basically. She all the while, it seems like she's reminiscing about all the times that, like, her and, you know, like the history that these two characters have, like, all through different costumes, different, like, periods within the comic, basically. So, like, from the Golden Age to Silver Age to Modern Age and whatever, like, through the different iterations of these two characters, like all the history they have and the way they've appeared, and it sort of cycles through like a history of different costumes the characters have worn, and the whole theme of the story seems to be about costumes, and it's just really cool, and I really enjoyed it, being the massive Batman weeb that I am. So yeah, no, it was really cool.
Yeah, it sounds like a nice arc. And looking at these covers, you're right, like both of these covers are pretty sweet, and next to each other they kind of line up as well. It's the perspective of the glass windows that they've, you know, in the backdrop, and the curved stairs line into each other, and like Bat's doing this power pose and Selina doing this like kind of elegant thing with her hands behind her back. Yeah, it's really sweet. I like it.
That is the two main covers are both by Mikkel Janin and Joelle Jones. There's a variant by Olivia Copiel, and it's written by Tom King, obviously. Art by Mikkel Janin and Joelle Jones. So yeah, great book. And if you're not reading this Batman run, I urge you to get on it, because it's fantastic, and Tom King is doing a great job, as I always say. Yeah, and then into the actual comics that I read for the purpose of talking about and for review for this podcast. First one that I've got here sort of follows my recent sort of theme of things that are Studio Ghibli or Ghibli-esque. And that would be Isola or Isola. I still haven't worked out how to say it. I think I'm probably going to go with Isola. And this is a Ghibli-esque adventure fantasy comic with notes of Legend of Zelda in there as well. The artwork is absolutely gorgeous, and it does a wonderful job of pulling you into the panels and putting you into the environment it depicts. So this book, as soon as the book opens, bam, it's a cold open, and you're thrust into the wilderness with this character, this Captain Rook, and this tiger that is travelling with her, and they're sleeping rough in the wilderness, and they seem to be on some kind of difficult journey to reach a place called Isola. Or Isola. Their reason for going there appears to be to lift some kind of curse, and the environment they're in, like, you just get this, the way that the art works and the way that the panels are put together and composed, you just get this like complete feeling of the kind of the cold, misty morning air, or like when it hits dusk and, you know, things are getting cooler and you've got like the dew falling and things. You can just sort of feel it when you look at the panels, you know. Like you know, like sometimes when food is drawn deliciously and you can imagine what it smells like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like it's coming off the page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But more than that, because it's not just coming off the page, you're inside the page by this point.
You're falling into the page.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It is a wondrous place filled with wildlife, familiar, and also some mythical beasts. And there's a 2-page spread where our protagonists happen upon a carcass of one such beast, and the scale of it is communicated wonderfully. Like, this 2-page panel is to die for. You'll notice I'm not talking too much about the story, and that's because it's really hard to talk about this without spoiling the first issue for you guys, because you need to have the cold open and you need to go through the book and experience it the way that I did in order to enjoy it. I think if I talk about exactly what happens and give you a complete synopsis of the first issue, then it'll be spoiled for you. So yeah. But yeah, the scale of this beast in this 2-page spread is magnificent, and I really like the way they do the character designs in this. Like I mentioned, it was Ghibli-esque. It's got that kind of Laputa feel about it, with the way that, you know, like the armor and the sort of like the rocks and everything, and it just, the way it just feels kind of I say Laputa. I kind of imagine Laputa, and without the technological angle, Breath of the Wild, Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It's that kind of aesthetic.
That kind of like born of nature, but also kind of leather and metal thing.
Yeah,
where it's a combination of both. Yeah,
where things look modern but at the same time aren't. It's got that about it. I guess it's not as, there's a lot of steam powered stuff in Laputa, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's a steampunk sort of aesthetic.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of steam powered stuff in this so far, and it just kind of has that feel about it, and that's what I like. I like the character designs. I like the way it's done, and I love the way that they the panels is like, some of the panels actually flow beyond their borders into the empty space, which like really makes the action pop off the page. So there's some points where there's some kind of some fast-paced action going, and you've got like things coming out of the borders, like popping beyond the panels, and I think that's a great way to illustrate it and give you a sense of urgency and everything else, which I really like. And also within this, the way they do this, there's some great use of onomatopoeia and sound description. And the way that they have drawn, we talked about this with Vinegar Teeth. You know, when they do intentionally misshapen or weird shaped speech bubbles and things. Yeah. So you don't just get, it's not just a string of letters or a phrase or a word describing the sound. It's the way the speech bubble is shaped gives you kind of an idea of the length of the sound, like a hiss. You know, like a hiss would probably have like a drawn out, long, almost wavy speech bubble, like a kind of thing, like smoke or something, just like hissing away, like flowing off onto the wind. And it does that quite nicely in some places. I quite like that. The way the book's written is interesting because the majority of the communication is one-sided. And without spoiling too much, I quite like how that works, and I like the way that they show the other side of the conversation, the way they illustrate that in the reactions of the person, we'll say, being spoken to, is really cool. And I love the rash, easily riled nature of Rook as well. She's great. She like kind of gets to the point where she's about to lose her temper, and then she's like really quick to sort of come down and remember and apologize. She's like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and then sort of like remembers her place, and it's great. And yeah, it's an engaging first chapter, and I just really want to see where it's going, and I really want more of this book. It's great, and I think you should read it, Ray.
Well, you actually caught my attention very early on. So while you were talking, I bought and downloaded it on Comixology. So I've been skimming through it as you've been talking. And you're right, the art is gorgeous in this. It's like ethereal and like moody and really well lit and like rain filled. And like the thing you were talking about with the like the clothing and the armor, it's kind of got this jungle gothic vibe to it. Is that what you're trying to express? Like it's like she's holding a spear, and it's kind of medieval with the leather and the the metal helms, but it's also she's wearing cloaks and like going through the jungle and forest and like doing this hunter gatherer rogue type deal. Yeah, it's super cool. I really like it. And it's almost without I can see how carefully you were wording things. Without giving too much away, it does have this like Life of Pi style like the dream sequences in that film, or like the slightly moments where he's kind of tripping out, or like the the sky is filled with stars and like the ocean feels like it lasts forever. It's got that kind of like magical realism type thing going on to it.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's great.
Yeah, the coloring in this is amazing. Just some of the stripes and the colors and the lines and the way that like the moonlight or the light at night is expressed. It's almost like in a movie where you have the kind of fake darkness where everything's tinged with blue, even though if it was truly dark you wouldn't be able to see anything. It's really, really cool. I'm skimming no further past the halfway mark because I don't want to ruin it for myself. But yeah, I'm in. I'm gonna pick this up. Even like you said, the Breath of the Wild thing, that makes a lot of sense because it's got the cave painting like scratchings on the wall, that kind of thing, like the runic symbols and all that.
Runic hieroglyphics and whatever else, and it's the carvings and stuff, and it's great. And I think we're given a taster of the next issue at the back of the first one, and I think issue 2 is going to be a bit more Breath of the Wild than this one is.
Okay.
But yeah, it's really cool. I really enjoyed that one. So that is Isola, and that is Image Comics, and the cover is actually like a fantasy map laid over with a picture of our main character, Captain Rook, and she's the captain of the Royal Guard, and she's sort of like in this kind of like orange sort of filter over the top, and then it's got Isola in big kind of carving style hieroglyphic type letters over the front of that in black, and it's really bold and striking. And then you've got underneath that you've got Isola in what appears to be the language of the like the hieroglyphic language used throughout the book, which appears on some of the ancient ruins and stuff, I think, which is pretty cool. I like that. I like that they've seemingly gone to the time and effort to come up with a language for this with its own letters and symbols. I like that. I do like when people do that. I love that. That is by you've got your story by Brendan Fletcher and Carl Kerschel. Art is Carl Kerschel and Masasik. The cover is by Carl Kerschel, and that has been on the stands since April 4th.
You might be in luck. Might still be on the shelves by the time you hear this.
Yeah, you might find it. If you can't find it on the shelves, there's always Comixology, and there's always, if you really, really want a hard copy of it, there's always eBay. You can see if anyone's selling any on there. So on from there, we have a book called Analog, which is another one of those books that I probably shouldn't read. So another one of those things that's a little too close to comfort, a little too close to reality for comfort. and the way things are going with the way information is shared and the way we live nowadays, where pretty much everything is online anyway, whether you want it or not. It's hard to pick and choose what people see and what people don't see, and it's getting more and more difficult to police that yourself, I think, with some social media outlets. So that's where this book comes from. It's called Analog, and it's an action-packed and very topical sci-fi thriller set in a near future where anything that's put onto the internet is now worldwide public knowledge, whether you want it to be or not. So if you put something in what you perceive to be what you say, you've got things on like a private cloud account somewhere where you keep photographs and videos and whatever. No such thing anymore. If you put something up there, everyone sees it. There's no barriers. Everything is open and available following a catastrophic data leak. And it plays with the idea of, as I've been describing, security within social networking especially. And it feels to be coming from a similar angle to Number One with a Bullet as far as information safety goes. I don't know if you get that feeling.
Yeah, I think they're parallel to each other. Just to mention, because I've read this as well, and yeah, this is definitely another one of those perfect stories that will feed your particular paranoid technological fantasies or like disturbances.
Yeah,
it's super designed to make you freak out. This is a great story, and I love the fact that the like everybody's information is released in one go in an event called like the Great Doxing.
Yeah,
I love that it's been called that. And it resulted in a world full of like reconnaissance drones and self-driving cars and like riot police everywhere. It's wild. Yeah,
people having sex in public in cars, and then their patrons asking what kind of car they're having sex in. I caught that in one of the panels, and it's brilliant because and
I like how. The main character walks past and like answers the question because they're shouting out the window. Yeah, it's a strange world, and it's not that far into the future, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, I love the comedy twist that this has to it. It's like it's not. I mean, it's a serious topic, but they've managed to add just enough funny to it for me to actually be able to sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah, there's some dark humour to it.
Yeah, it has me laughing out loud, actually, when I'm reading it. So, maybe that's just because I'm a bad person, but...
No, I think that's better than you being a gibbering wreck and being scared of your computer or your phone, so it's all good.
No, yeah, it's a great story, I like it for that. And I feel like I'm represented in this book in some ways.
Well, definitely, because like if I can backtrack slightly and describe what the story's about, right?
Yeah, go for it.
So we start off on like a hitman sitting on a bench, who's like a super confident hitman. He seems to have the advantage, being sat on this bench but bleeding out, and being injured and outnumbered. Having been chased down by his pursuers, and he's just like kind of chill, and he's calmly like logicking out to his pursuers how things will go down, and they're really disbelieving of him having the upper hand, but he very calmly like explains what's going to happen, who's going to get shot first, this and that, and they call his bluff, and then they find out that he wasn't bluffing. He was genuinely in control of the situation. The guy's name is Jack McGinnis. He calls himself a ledger man, and he carries your secrets, and it's an amazing cold open. It turns out, so this Jack McGinnis is basically this cold, broken, pragmatic old man. He's an old man, but he calls himself a Generation Xer, which is a terrifying prospect. Like, he's us. He's us, the jaded guy who grew up on the cusp of the internet. Like, we knew what the world was like before the internet was there, and then we grew up with the internet, we learned how it worked, and then we also got to see how it was shaped instead of being dropped into it after it had reached its maturity.
And we learned to fear it.
Learned to fear it from the beginning. We learned how to control it as well. We learned what to put on it and what not to put on it. And even then, we still make mistakes. So God knows what the kids are going to be doing. Anyway, so like it turns out the reason it's called analog is because he's a guy who will carry your secrets for you in an analog format. So no digital. He will take your data from one place to another on a physical medium. And I kind of like this made me remember a term that I learned back in like the 90s, I think it was, called sneakernet, where that would represent anybody basically carrying data on like a floppy disk or a CD. by walking, by physically taking the data from one place to another, because either it was too much data to pass through what would have been, telephone lines at the time, or it wasn't it was so private that it couldn't be sent through data transmission, which could be interpreted. The person took it from one place to another in like a briefcase or in their hand, or in their backpack or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of going around that, and
we've kind of been circled back to it in this world because of the way things have gone down. Now, to keep a secret, the only way to do it is to hire a legiman to transport your documents for you, and we've sort of gone full circle, really, with that.
It's a really interesting premise, and it seems like something that, like, it must be happening these days already. Like, we do hear about people taking like sensitive information and then leaving it on the tube, all of those kind of things. And like, so then we learn about this guy, we learn about the people that he works with, we learn about the people he does these jobs for, and then we flash back to a time which is on like the cusp of the advent of artificial intelligence, and we meet this .com tech whiz called Oppenheimer, who's like this Zuckerbergian type with compromised morals and a monopolized digital platform which has been abused for political gain, which sounds really relevant.
And
right?
Also to sort of pick on the fact that he's called Oppenheimer and he's created something that is,
a modern nuclear bomb.
Exactly, yes.
A modern thing which changes the shape of the world. Yeah.
Yes.
And so... No, go on. Sorry.
I found that quite relevant. I quite enjoyed that. And yeah, as you were saying, it is very relevant in what's happening here with this Zuckerberg type dude, this Oppenheimer guy.
Yeah, it sounds like an interesting character. We don't really get to know much about him, but we see what Jack McGinnis feels about him even before he talks to the guy. Like, he knows who he is, and he knows how he feels about him, and he knows how he feels about the things he's created from the get-go, and so we get teased of this dramatic world-changing event that happens in Palo Alto, which happens to be like the Californian Silicon Valley tech haven, but is also the name of like a network security company. I don't know if that's a reference, but it's like currently it's like a tech haven area, and Jack claims to have played a pivotal role in this world-changing event that happens there. And then we get dragged back into the present day without having any answers. We don't find out what happened in Palo Alto. We don't find out what happened to cause the Great Doxing. We don't see what his role was in it, and we get dragged back to the present day to have a cliffhanger shoved in our faces. And it's just like this issue 1 is like a perfect opening, I think. And we talk about this a lot, about it, issue 1s being kind of like the opening scenes to a TV show or a movie. This is amazing. Like, it's perfectly pitched, perfectly paced. I loved it. I'm really glad that you brought me onto this.
I loved it. I loved his monologuing as well. Like, it just felt so like noir.
Yeah.
Like it had this like really like sort of detective noir feel about it when the main character starts monologuing at the beginning of the book, and you get the monologue boxes, and it's, as I say, it's laced with comedy and intrigue, and there's some really nice establishing panels that sort of like thrust us into this new world of everything being open and on show, because what we're given is kind of a Where's Wally of like this one set of panels where it's done horizontally across the 2 pages. We're given a kind of a Where's Wally of people arguing about things and doing things that seem completely outlandish but are now commonplace because everyone sees and hears everything. So what does it matter anyway? Like, there's people shouting at each other in the street about dick pics and things like that, and it's just like it's great. It's great for that. And he's like, well, New York was like this before anyway, so that's why I'm still here.
Yeah. Like, everyone was airing their dirty laundry to begin with, and now you have no choice but to put your dirty laundry out to air. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and I just thought that was great, and I just love the sort of the tinge of irony in all of it, and the fact that it's so with things that are going on in the news right now. This book is like really hot. It's like really on, really.
Yeah, it's on point. Yeah, because I like how it sets up this thing of how people went in very different ways. Like, some of them, after the Great Doxing, they just dived straight in because, like, what do they have to
Yeah.
lose anymore? They put everything on the internet and, like, they fully embrace technology, which is something that we do right now. Or you've got people who have attempted to take themselves entirely off the grid, like he does, because it benefits his job. And you have these people who own, like, for example, we see a
Yeah.
bar owner who shouts out a guy who's talking to his wristwatch because, like, no technology of any form is allowed in his
his bar.
establishment. Yeah. And like it's not too far off what we have now. I've got friends who refuse to like sign into like Facebook or don't even like to use WhatsApp or these encrypted things because they just don't trust it. And this is just an extrapolation of what we have now if the worst had happened.
Yeah, and I know people that are in the same position that would just refuse to use social networking and things like that, and that's fine. It's when you find out the reason why that bar is a no tech bar. And you start to sort of delve more into our protagonist, our main character, and we learn a bit more about his dealing in what has happened and his guilt. Yeah, and the way he deals with that, and that's when it actually becomes quite sad. But then at the same time, like, if he hadn't have done that, what would have happened? Which is like the question that the book asks. And the cliffhanger at the end is brilliant, I must say. Involves my favourite character in the book.
Typical. Let's not go too far into why.
Let's not go too far into that. No, but so my favourite character appears towards the end of the book, and he's part of the cliffhanger. And when you read that bit of the book, you'll know why he's my favourite character. But yeah, that is analog number 1, and that is the story by Jerry Duggan. The art and cover are by David O'Sullivan and Geordie Belair. See her name a lot nowadays. She colours a lot of stuff. Yeah, she does a lot of colours for a lot of people. Okay. And we have variant cover by Declan Shalvey, and that is on Image Comics. And again, that was another one from the 4th, 2 weeks ago. So if you're lucky, you might still be able to find it. And the cover's kind of nice. It's got our main guy, Jack McGinnis, standing with his back to a tree. There's a briefcase, and there's a bunch of guys that seem like they're hunting for him. And he's bleeding, and there's a bloody handprint on the briefcase, and he's in the middle of a shootout, and it's great. I love it.
See, I really didn't like the cover for this. I thought his head looked too big for the rest of his body, but like again, don't judge a book by its cover.
I like the way they've done the face and this kind of squareness of it all. It's got this kind of Samurai Jackness about it.
Kind of,
yeah,
like Samurai Jack, but without the. I was going to use the word bland. That's not fair. Like. I don't know, abstracted, blocky.
With more detail. Samurai Jack with more detail, yeah.
Yeah. I get what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, less cartoony, less abstract, yeah. I thought it was good, though. I thought it was great for that. Okay, so this brings back to me again something that I read, Solo, which I have been reading, and I enjoy talking about this book because it's pure escapism. This book is pure escapism. Scales and Scoundrels number 8. Now, as I keep saying, amazing as always. I've talked about Scales and Scoundrels before. We seem to be at the beginning of a new arc with this one, and this could also be taken as a self-contained chapter. I won't talk too much about it because we're 8 issues in now, and it treats us to a bit of history and lore surrounding the lands and surrounding Lou, our main character, and the various peoples that dwell in those lands. And as always, the art is to die for. Sweeps me off to a fantasy realm. The writing's great, the action's fun, the pacing's perfect, the tone, it's like the humor's great as well. It's kind of got like what I was talking about previous episode with the things that I like about adventure comics. So where it can deal with a kind of lofty moral maybe or issue, and it can boil it down to a level where it can be easily digested by anyone of any age. And I think this book is built for people of all ages. I do believe that. And it was just really great fun. And this one had haughty elves in it, and everyone loves haughty elves, right? So, yeah. No, it's great. I love it. Great fun adventure story, and that's just me saying my little piece about Scales and Scoundrels 8, because if you're not already buying Scales and Scoundrels, why aren't you buying Scales and Scoundrels? Even, you know, buy it on, you can go to your local, you go to your local comic shop and you can add it to your pull list and get it that way. They've even got the first trade in Waterstones. I saw it in Waterstones the other day.
Oh, nice.
So okay. Yeah, it's making it out there. It's quite accessible, which is what I like when something like this, which is again published on Image. It's an Image book, but it wouldn't necessarily have been one that would have made the mainstream. And when you go to Waterstones, you see the usual, you know, the DC, the Marvel, the mainstream stuff. You don't usually see things like this, but I'm starting to see, you know, more sort of indie graphic novels in Waterstones, and Scales and Scoundrels is in there too. So yeah,
cool. Yeah, I love the artwork in this, that watercolor like wash thing.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
It is cool. It's really beautiful. Quick roll of credits for Scales and Scoundrels. Story is by Sebastian Gerner, and the art and the cover in the book are by Gallard. And yeah, it's a great one. So, read the first arc, or even if you just want a nice, sweet little self-contained story with a bit of fantasy, element in it, then grab this single issue and see if it grabs you, and if it grabs you, go back and grab the rest of it and carry on reading it, because it's great. And I will be an advocate for this book until the day it finishes, I believe. Yeah, definitely. And where do we go from there, Ray?
Well, I've picked up something called Lucy Dreaming, which I think I talked about in our 2017 wrap-up episode, where I brought it up as one to look forward to in 2018. Finally came out on, I think, the 4th of April. Finally got around to reading it. So this is writer Max Bemis, illustrator Michael Dialynas, so that's spelled Dialynas, so I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and letters by Colin Bell. So it follows the titular Lucy, who's an immature, sarcastic, somewhat patronizing, and definitely pretty pretentious teenager who has that pretty common balance of like smart enough to know that she's not that smart, or nothing special, and masks her really obvious social anxieties and insecurities by behaving like a bit of a know-it-all asshole. She kind of looks down on her peers while simultaneously coveting their lives, and like coveting who they are and their confidence and whatever they express themselves to be. And like, to quote herself from issue number 1, she says, "I should be a child prodigy or something, not a loser with a chip on her shoulder." Lucy is pretty relatable. Like, teenage Rahul can relate to this, right? Yeah. And so we're introduced to her describing like the hyper-gory details of her current book that she's reading, to her concerned parents who thought she was reading this Twilight XP book. Her dad mentions, like, with a dumbfounded face when she's describing what's happening in this pretty vicious book, like, "I thought you were going to read the book about the kissy vampires," and she like pretends to barf, and it's this whole thing. So we find out that she loves English. It's her favorite class. She loves to read. She spends all her time reading when, quote unquote, all the other kids are on their phones. And she desperately wants to be, quote, the hero of her own story, end quote. And so as soon as she utters that, falls asleep reading her book, cue the shenanigans. She falls asleep and reawakes as Princess Eleanor Fadar, caught in a melodramatic Star Wars / Mass Effect-esque space opera filled with laser gun battles and witty aliens and attractive monologuing rogues and like long corridors to run and shoot down. Except it's not a dream, obviously. The violence is too real and the pain she feels is definitely too real. This is not a dream. So I'll stop there before I give away too much. It's a really promising first entry into this new series. The artwork is super my thing. So it's kind of split. The art is split between Lucy in the real world, as we know it, with her kind of anime-esque looks and, how she's the only person in her class to stand out because she's got bright pink hair and her nose is always in a book and she's the, the one in the corner while everyone else is chatting to each other.
The quirky kid.
The quirky anime kid. Like, you can always tell who the protagonist is in an anime, right?
Yeah.
But then the art in the real world is... the art in this real world is cartoony and vibrant, and it has like really exaggerated features and bold block colors and thick angular edges. Like, I particularly like the way her hair is drawn because it's kind of angular, but you get the sense that it's curly and pink and bushy. It's pretty cool. And this contrasts really well with the art when she's in the dream world, which is more realistically proportioned, even though despite the presence of like all these alien figures. and has a much more smoothly shaded and realistic, shadowy aesthetic while still remaining pretty colorful. And like it seems the dream world, it seems like smeared in grime, and it has, you know, all these futuristic weapons which glow and diffuse light and cast darkness and shadows onto the surroundings. But you also see like these very real consequences of when these weapons are used. Like I particularly like the laser swords, which are, I mean, they're obviously trying to be like lightsabers, but they're less rigid and composed than lightsabers. They're more smoky and flowy with all these shifting edges and like the lightsaber-esque bright beam of white in the middle, and then you see the color flowing off the edges. I dig the aesthetic of this. It's super cool, and it's an escapist fantasy designed for the angsty bookworm / nerd emo child in all of us, which I'm sure a lot of us can relate to this, right? Yeah. So I'm in. I think this is great. That was Lucy Dreaming. The cover is what sold me. It's got the smoothly shaded bright colors, like it goes from yellow to pink, and you can see Lucy in her real world self sat at her school desk, reading a book. And all around her, you see the dream figures of Princess Fadar that she ends up in the dream world, as like shooting each other in the back, in the foreground, and it's just lovely. A couple of like points that I didn't know how to feed into what I said earlier. So like, it's nice that she has a good relationship with her parents, because it opens with them talking to her about her book. They don't judge her tastes or anything. When they ask if she was going to read the Twilight-esque book, and she makes fun of it, they're still on board with whatever she's doing. And also, like, the parents seem to have a good relationship with each other. Their kinks and like their sex drive is hinted at, and Lucy herself seems aware of it, but kind of grossed out by it, but also mature enough to understand it. And it's this whole, like, grossed out teenage thing, which I thought was well done. And lastly, like, I think Lucy's alter ego has a very Star Wars inspired bun in her hair. And so when you're first introduced to her, it looks like she's got Rey's double bun. So you know how in The Force Awakens you see her with like two buns at the back of her head, as opposed to Princess Leia's like cinnamon buns on the side of her head. But then when Lucy turns around, we find out it's a quadruple bun. Like it's like they've taken Star Wars and then doubled it. I just thought that was a neat touch.
That's kind of cool, because the way you describe her is like she wants to be extraordinary. So she's like taken Star Wars, if she's watched Star Wars, to the nth level kind of thing,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what it comes from, because the book that she's reading as she falls asleep is a very Star Wars-esque, like I think it's called Star Saga or something. And there's this whole thing of like how the charming rogue dude clearly has a thing for her.
San Holo or something like that is his name.
I've forgotten what it was, but it's an equally ridiculous name. And like he's monologuing and being overly melodramatic in a very space opera kind of way.
Yeah.
And he's professing his love to her in a roundabout fashion. And she's like, "Have you seen me? I'm nothing special." And then she spots herself in the mirror in her in her dream state, and she looks at herself and like just grins and goes, "I look good." Like it's just this whole like the teenage fantasy thing. It plays it off really well.
Yeah. No, I think I could definitely relate to that some way. Yeah.
It kind of makes me embarrassed about what I was like as a kid, because it's like, yes, don't be an asshole. But everyone goes through their thing, and I think I'd like to see where it takes her and what she learns from this whole process. And it ends on a kind of an interesting cliffhanger as well. So
that sounds good. I kind of want to read that now.
Yeah, if we can swap, I'll pick up. Well, I've already picked up Isola. You can pick up Lucy Dreaming. Yeah,
I'll have to grab that. Check it out.
Good stuff. Yeah.
It is just one issue, isn't it? It's not. Yeah, you said that as number one
so far. But we can get to that in the pull list later.
Yeah. So, my last one is a Cold War spy thriller, or a spy thriller that has its roots in the Cold War. And it is called The Dead Hand, and this is issue 1. Now, I start with the cover on this one, and with the credits. So, story is by a Kyle Higgins. The art and the cover are by a Stephen Mooney and a Geordie Belair. And this was April 11th, so this was 1 week ago. Now, the cover art, it's got like this kind of, when you're looking at a James Bond DVD case, I think is the best way to describe it. And it's kind of got like a flash of some of the main characters in the story, and characters we haven't met yet actually in the first issue, and it's got kind of this print thing going on, like almost like part James Bond DVD cover, part propaganda poster. But you like it just screams spy thriller and just oozes like action and, you know, everything that you come to associate, action and style and everything else, right? So also it's got that kind of Soviet aesthetic about it as well, with red and stars and things like that.
I like the brutalist, the title, the dead hand with the font that it's written in. I see what you mean. I'm looking at it right now. I 100% get what you mean with the James Bond cover type thing.
Yeah, you get what I'm coming from.
Yeah, especially, like pulp thriller type cover.
Especially the blonde with the silencer, you know. Yeah.
And the cross around her neck.
Yeah. So yeah, Cold War spy thriller with a fantastic twist in the first issue. So, like, you get to the end of the first issue and you're already, your head's on backwards. It's like, what? So, yeah. And so what I picked up from this is we've got this main character, this guy. What I'm going to do, actually, is I'm just going to read out the synopsis from the Image website. So, the arc or the story in this first issue that we're introduced to is called Cold War Relics, and this is part 1. And we've got Carter Carlson, who is our main character. He was a highly decorated operative during the Cold War, but in the fall of 1991, as the Soviet Union collapsed, Carter discovered a secret that not only changed his life but also altered the course of history. Now, as the mysterious dead hand threatens to end the world once again, the only thing standing in its way is the relationship between an old spy and a little boy. So during the first issue, we are given a kind of rundown of who Carter Carlson is. That's like the first half of the first issue is his past. So we're told, you know, he grew up in the 50s or whatever, and his parents, like his dad was like a claims adjuster or something like that, insurance guy. His mother was an ex-secretary, and apparently, you know, he loved comic books, like kind of in the 50s and 60s, and apparently he had a good childhood, but maybe that's just the way he remembers it. Apparently his parents weren't that well adjusted, but it goes through that, and then it shows you that he joins the army and everything else, and how he believes that his comic books were like a direct influence on him joining the army and wanting to be a soldier and things like that. And it's almost like he's a product of the American dream propaganda machine. Like the perfect product of the American dream propaganda machine. And the way that it lays it out and the way that I read it, I feel like it's a pretty good subversion of the Captain America thing.
Okay.
So, like, you know, he joined the army because he wanted to do a good thing and help. And it's like he's been fed these stories through comic books and things like that. And he's been fed this kind of like... how do I describe it? He's been fed the American dream, basically, through comic books and whatever else as a kid, and through wanting to be a superhero and things like that. He's decided he's going to join the army, and he ends up part of a Black Ops team, and it spirals from there. And then we're shown what happened at the end of the Cold War, like what happened during his final mission, and then we're flash forward to his present, where he's a cop in a small town. Small American-style town. He's a cop. And that's where I'm going to leave it, because if I go any further, I'll spoil it too much. But yeah,
okay.
It's great, the way it goes through that, and the way it just, like... Because he's even got, like... When he's a spy, and he's, like, a decorated operative and whatever, he's even got, like, this kind of, like, Winter Soldier / Captain America outfit going on. And I just saw it as a really good subversion and a really good, like, twist on the whole Winter Soldier Captain America thing. And especially, you know, the way they've handled the Winter Soldier in the recent movies in the cinematic universe. Yeah, kind of like that a little bit is what they've done with this. And I just thought it was really cool. I loved that it sort of takes the all-American town and the all-American soldier and all-American values, and what it does with that is like, because it just takes it and it just kind of takes everything and flips it a little bit. I guess this is the best way I can describe this. This is not, I'm not being as articulate as I want to be about this. It's kind of frustrating, but yeah, it's great the way it does it. And it's like the duality and the disparity is laid out in full view between the East and the West, like from the Cold War days, and how that's maybe still there as well. And is the Cold War actually over, And I guess this is kind of relevant to current goings on as well, actually, in a way. But yeah, no, it's a great comic for that, and it's a great spy thriller, and I would recommend it to anyone that likes that kind of story, because I certainly enjoyed it.
It does sound really cool. Yeah,
it is very cool. Yeah, so that's another one for recommendation, and that is The Dead Hand #1, and that is published on Image Comics as well. So I think we've just recorded another Image cast, haven't we?
Well, I can combo break that, because I'd like to talk about a comic made by Belfast City Comics, who I'd never heard of before. And it looks like they do really independent, like they seem like a scrappy little publication. So basically, this comic I want to talk about is called Pug.Nay.Shus. That's Pug.Nay.Shus. So it's about a pug. It's about a dog. Yeah. It's if I can take the synopsis that I found on Amazon. By the way, I should backtrack and say I think this is one that I talked about in the looking forward to in 2018. I don't know why. I must have read it on a list or seen it on, upcoming, and then it had been delayed by a few months, and it finally came out again on the 4th of April, I believe. And the only place I could find it was on Kindle. Like, not even in the shops, not on Comixology, like Kindle, Amazon Kindle for 99p. It's by Dawn Hargy, or Hargy, the author, and illustrator is Owain Davies. So basically, the synopsis is a colourful and character-filled story about a strong-minded young pug and the adventures she gets up to with her band of physically disfigured toys. And we get part 1. This issue #1 is part 1, and it's about a young pug becomes fixated on a dinosaur who seems to be the centre of all her problems. So it's told from the point of view of the oldest pug in a litter, and her name is Molly. And this book is like super lo-fi. Like, it's, for want of a better word, it's really ugly. It looks like a day one scanlation of a manga. I don't know if listeners out there have ever experienced this before, but when like an issue of a manga comes out in Japan, and then people rush to scan it in and then manually translate it, and when you get the day one scanlation, it's normally really poorly scanned, like it's they haven't done the cleanup or anything, and they do a very rudimentary translation pass, and not just in terms of the quality of the language translation, but also how well the actual text the Japanese text has been replaced with the English. This is very much like that. It looks, I think it's deliberately made to look like a day one scanlation, where it's everything's poorly arranged and it has like amateurish text, and it almost looks like it's done in PowerPoint almost. Like the text is just dropped ramshackle over the art, so it has like a rectangular opaque backdrop and then white text over it in the kind of font you'd find in just Word or PowerPoint. So the plot focuses on Molly corralling a group of dogs who may or may not be toys, I'm not really clear, to venture into the new world, quote unquote new world, which is basically the world beyond a locked front door of the dilapidated house that they're trapped in, to face a terrifying dinosaur who looks like, and may well just be, like a stuffed Reptar toy wearing pink sandals, a striped sock on its tail, and round goggle glasses, and with like this weird grin on its face. And it's all told from the perspective of Molly, who speaks like a bombastic, self-important fantasy fan fiction protagonist. The pug is telling a tale around a campfire. It's ridiculous. And she says things like, "He will lay siege to the world of toys, and the gods were deaf to my prayers." And it works pretty well like it's coming from this dopey dog who has a very limited understanding of the world around it. I kind of dig it. It's this really odd, just a really odd surreal vibe. Like the art is genuinely cool. Like I know I said it looks bad, but the art is cool because it has like this bright tangled colors and like sinister static toy faces everywhere. But it's either they've taken the images and then put it through like an artifacting or low resolution like filter to get a muddy early internet JPEG look, or the artist is just that good that they've drawn it to make it look that like old school and crappy. Like the whole thing is really unsettling and feels a little bit like a fever dream.
I need to read this.
I think you'd like it. Like I can't tell if it's
this.
an exercise in constrained or amateurish comic writing, or it's genuinely shoddy but charming. Do you know what I mean?
Don't say things like amateurish and constrained, because
No. I mean that in like they're doing it in a considered way. Like they're obviously it's either they're genuinely shoddy but it's charming, or these artists are so talented that they can make it look like they're doing it in an amateur way. You know, like how when they talk about actors who are very good at singing but then have to pretend to be bad at singing, and it's actually really difficult to be a good singer and pretend to be bad at it. I kind of feel like that's what they're doing here. Like they're obviously very talented. They may very well be a very talented team, but they're doing a very, very good job of passing as amateurish. And it works really well. I really like it.
I get the feeling that they are doing it on purpose.
I think so.
I'm having a quick flick through it now, and it kind of feels like they're doing it on purpose. And it just, I think they're doing it to get a certain aesthetic, and maybe to sort of give you kind of like an idea of maybe, I don't know. Like, I mean, you're saying that the way this dog is actually very eloquent.
Yeah, but like in a really pompous kind of self-important way.
Can I read the quote out that's in the beginning of the book?
Yeah, go for it.
The pale poo head, threadbare in fabric head, body and stuffing. I see him now. Molly, 2007.
Like it's a self-quote. It's really funny. I agree. I do think it's done deliberately, but I just love the fact that they've taken it to this extreme. And the only reason I bring up that it could not be is I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Like if they genuinely don't know what they're doing, it's super charming regardless, right? So after Pug.Nay.Shus Part 1 abruptly ends when they encounter this dinosaur, we get a story called Crab Girl and I. And like I didn't realize this was going to be tacked onto the end, but it is. It's about a guy and his imaginary friend who is part crab or something. That's how they put it in the book, and it seems to be made like I think it's made entirely by Owain Davies. It looks to be a collection of 3-panel webcomics, but looking it up, doing my research on it, I don't think it was ever published as webcomics. I think it's been published digitally in the format that I downloaded it in Pug.Nay.Shus. So it's a collection of things that were seemingly webcomics but actually aren't. It's pretty funny. It kind of reminds me of stuff like Yonan Vasquez or those Salad Fingers flash animations from the mid 2000s. It's kind of broody and verbose, and this is juxtaposed with like disgusting or surreal humor. It's not really the kind of thing I like these days, but I could imagine like teenage me would have dug it. That's Pug.Nay.Shus number 1, I think, of 2. If what I can find on Amazon is clear. Like I said, the only place I could find it was on Amazon Kindle, and it's 99p. If you want something like just kind of mad, pick that up. Pug.Nay.Shus.
No, I feel like I need to read that. It feels brilliant. I'm just having a quick look now to see if I can find more previews of what it looks like inside. But yeah, no, it looks...
Yeah, I couldn't find anything anywhere. Not even on the... what did I say the publication was? Belfast City Comics. There's nothing on there. You can find Crab Girl and I on that, but you can't find Pug.Nay.Shus on it. And I found the details for it on the League of Comics, but very little else. Just the author, illustrator, and cover. Yeah,
no, I think I need to get that. I think I'll have to buy it as a Kindle book.
For 99p,
if I buy it as a Kindle book, is it still going to work if I try and open it as a PDF on my PC or something? Because I don't have a Kindle.
Not necessarily. The thing is with when you buy comics off Kindle, because Amazon now own Comixology, I think 99% of the comics that you get on Kindle will be transferred over to your associated Comixology account, because now you can link your Comixology account with your Amazon.co.uk account. So I've been buying the Marvel, like Ms. Marvel stuff and the Vision. I bought all of those from Amazon Kindle because it was cheaper than buying it from Comixology, but I can actually open it in my Comixology app on my iPad or even on the website.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's worked with Pug.Nay.Shus. I haven't had a chance to check. It doesn't look like it will, because normally it says on the Kindle page is linked with Comixology, and this one doesn't have that. But yeah, you might have to read it through the Kindle app or through the Kindle web app.
Okay, I might have to read it through the Kindle web app if I pay for it then, because if I buy it, because I don't have a Kindle, so. But yeah.
Well, yeah, you can read it on your phone or on the website or whatever.
It sounds really, really good.
It's strange, and it's really short as well, and for 99p, can't go wrong.
You know me, I like strange stuff, so I really read that.
And I like supporting these little artists as well, little publications, so why not?
Exactly. So, I think that wraps us up, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've got a whole stack of comics that I picked up literally about 30 comics that had been saved for me at the back while I was absent for, so many weeks. I've got loads to get through, and these I focused on new stuff for this week, but I'll try and get to things that I've been putting on the back burner. Some new things like Domino, which came out a few weeks ago, which is the new Gail Simone book. I'd like to read that. I intend to read the Tomb Raider Survivors Crusade. I think there's 4 of those out now. I'd like to try and get that read by next week, but we'll see, time commitments and what notwithstanding.
Yeah, no, I've got a lot to catch up on. A lot. So yeah, it's
the load-bearing stack grows and grows, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
The roof's about to come off.
I know, man. I'm about to get buried. But yeah, no, it's I so much to catch up on. But yeah, like I say, I've been picking out the new ones and stuff, and I've been trying to keep on top of it, and I'm not doing too badly. Looking at like my 2 reads stack still, so I'm not doing too badly, but I could be doing better. And I'm about to add to it because this week's a big one. Looking at the pull list, I too wanted to get on Domino by Gail Simone, by the way. I wanted to read that. Yeah, X-Men characters and such. So yeah, that sounds like quite a fun book, but I haven't got round to it yet, like you say, so it's one of those things that I've just missed. But
yeah, I've only skimmed through it, and the first page has a pug, so there's a theme going on.
Yeah, pugs. So, pull list for this Wednesday, release date of this episode, 18th of the 4th. We have Vinegar Teeth number 4, which I believe is the end.
Oh, okay.
It's the final Vinegar Teeth.
Cool.
Yes, it is, yeah. Vinegar Teeth number 4 of 4. So that will be the end of that one. And it's been great. It's been great fun. Lovecraftian detective noir weirdness is the best way I can describe that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the end of that, number 4. We've got another Asagi Yojimbo book coming out this week. Asagi Yojimbo, The Hidden number 2, which is the second part of the one that I was talking about last podcast. Big one, Action Comics 1000. So the 1000th issue of Action Comics, involving Brian Michael Bendis. So this will be his debut with DC Comics. We've got it was like the first thing that he's written for DC Comics will be a Superman story, and it will be in Action Comics 1000, I believe, so that will be cool. Batman number 45, which is the continuation of the great Batman stories that we have been talking about for a while on here now, and that I have talked about this episode. Batman Creature of the Night number 3, which I had almost forgotten was being published because I hadn't seen an issue of it for a long time. But that is like a really cool, really different take on the whole Batman thing, like a deconstruction of what Batman is and what Batman means, and the driving psychological forces behind the character itself. Who Batman is and where it comes from and so forth. As in with Bruce Wayne and things like that, and a deconstruction of what the character of Bruce Wayne is, and Bruce Wayne in the real world and such. We've got Diablo House number 4 this week, which I'm looking forward to, which I'm always looking forward to, a new Diablo House. I'm just sad that it's so disparate, and it just but when you do get it, it's just so good, and it's such a joy to have a new issue of that. Ghostbusters Crossing Over number 2, which is the continuation of the latest arc, which brings together Ghostbusters from all over the multiverse. Different Ghostbusters from different iterations of the Ghostbusters. So we've got Ghostbusters coming in from the Extreme Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters from the real Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters from the original movie, Ghostbusters from the 2016 movie. It brings it all together into one delightful soup. It's great. Got Spider King number 3, which is my Vikings versus Aliens book that I've talked about on here previously, and it is great. Should point out, not actually my Vikings versus Aliens book, so I didn't mean it that way. But yeah, it's the Viking versus Aliens book that I really like. So yeah, Spider King number 3. TMNT Universe number 21 is out this week. We've also got Transformers Lost Light number 17, Curse Words number 13, and Kick-Ass number 3, which is number 3 in the sort of latest run of Kick-Ass, which I'm quite enjoying right now. So yeah, that's cool. With the following week, the 25th of the 4th, we've got Ice Cream Man number 4, a new Alien series, Aliens Dust to Dust. So with this one, this is the sort of the blurb, if you like, off Previews World, that has sort of got me interested. So the Trono colony on LV-871 is under attack. Emergency evacuations are ordered. Evac shuttles are taking off. All 12-year-old Maxon and his mum have to do is to make it to the spaceport, except between them and it are aliens. Terrifying coming-of-age story by master storyteller Gabriel Hardman. And Gabriel Hardman, he has storyboarded films Batman The Dark Knight Rises, Logan, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and many others. It's a re-examination of why we fear aliens, and it is on sale for Alien Day, which is 4/26, so 26th of April. And it's on sale on the 25th, New Comic Book Day. So I am definitely interested in that one. Other things for the 25th, there is Thanos Annual number 1 and Hunt for Wolverine number 1, which I'm kind of interested in because it's sort of, I think it's the return of the main Wolverine. So we've had Old Man Logan, we've had other Wolverines, other versions of Wolverine and things like that, I think, in the Marvel comics until recently, and now we're getting like classic Wolverine back. So that's the reason I'm interested in that, because I want to see what they're doing and why. So that's me for the next 2 weeks for the pull list. Ray, over to you.
Yeah, so for the 18th, which is when this podcast is coming out, I've got John Wick number 2, Lucy Dreaming number 2, so that's the second part to the story I just talked about earlier today, Mr. Miracle number 8, and then for new ones, I found something called Skyward number 1. So it seems to be set on a world where the gravity on Earth has suddenly become a fraction of what it is now. And then 20 years later, humanity has adapted to its new low-gravity reality. And you can, it's pretty great, apparently. Like, you can fly through the air, but if you jump too high, you can also die. It sounds awesome.
I know this one. I read a preview of it at the back of one of my other books.
Oh, nice.
It reminded me of
Gravity Rush.
Mirror's Edge.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
I got a bit of a Mirror's Edge vibe off it. With the aesthetic, the way they're dressed and everything. But yeah, Gravity Rush as well, yeah.
Well, yeah, I guess it's kind of both, because you see like the cityscape underneath this girl who's upside down, like floating in the air. So I guess the Mirror's Edge thing comes with like you get to navigate this whole this sprawling metropolis, but the Gravity Rush thing, because you get to manipulate gravity and whatnot. Yeah, I can see both of those. That looks interesting. And then the second one I've got for the 18th of April is something called Survival Fetish. I have no idea what it's about, apart from the fact that the title is badass. Survival Fetish, that's cool. And it's like a stark red background with like black stripes coming down, which I guess are buildings. I can't really tell, and it's got some guy like leaping between these buildings. It looks pretty cool.
I think everyone has a fetish for survival, though, right? I mean,
well, it's something to do about the region is a sniper alley, and this main character knows how to traverse it better than anyone else.
Yeah.
And he transports medicine and information across this no man's land.
Yeah.
So that sounds kind of cool.
I have a fetish for survival. I don't want to die.
Well, yeah, who doesn't? Well, not everyone does. Who knows? You got a fetish for barely surviving. Some people are more thrill-seeking than we are. Yeah. And then for the 25th of April, I've got Hungry Ghost #4. And then for new ones, I've got something called Billionaire Killers. Again, don't know much about it other than the covers seem pretty cool, cool and moody. And I think in particular, we both like the Alexis Irrit cover, which has this like stark pop art, like gothic. Two women facing each other eating ice cream, except they don't have their faces. They're like these bright yellow skulls staring out at you with deep blue and dark red hair on the thing. It's very, very cool cover. So check that out.
Sorry, I was going to say Alexis Irrit is the guy from Space Riders.
That's the one. That makes sense. Yeah, that whole hyper what's the word? Hyper stylized, hyper color vibe to it. Yeah. And then finally, I've got something called Dayglow Hole, which is by Ben Passmore, who is the artist and writer behind Your Black Friend, which I believe Leon spoke very highly of in a previous episode. So picked it up from that, the fact that I recognize the author, and also the cover is pretty cool. It's got like these wavy letters for the title, and it's got a guy sitting on a trash heap, and the synopsis says, "How is your post-apocalypse going? Enjoying the irradiated deserts, menacing clouds of sentient porn magazines, mutant police, and hipsters on some street art kick? No? Well, this is the best that the end of the world gets." It seems cool. Social and political commentary mixed with punk nonsense and gore, drawn in vibrant fluorescent colours, apparently, which ticks all the boxes, I think. Yeah, so I'll be picking that up.
I like the idea of sentient clouds of porn mags. I don't understand that, but I kind of like. I want to know what that is.
Whatever it is, it sounds brilliant. Yeah.
And yeah, it just is it Dayglow a hole.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, so if I spell it out, it's one word. So let me spell that out for you. It's DAYGLOAYHOLE. Dayglow a hole.
I think yeah, Dayglow. I'm going to say Dayglow a hole.
You're probably right.
More punk than but yeah, no, it looks great, and I kind of want to read it now. So yeah, definitely. If I can add that to my list, I will.
Yeah, and that's me done for my picks.
Yeah, so that has been Ace Comicals episode 33, I guess. So yeah, it was good to have you back, Ray.
Thanks. Good to be back.
And we are now going to sign off. So you can find us on the web, www.acecomicals.com. The hub for everything. That's our main website. So you can find sort of links to everything there. There you will find links to our Twitter page where we are at Ace Comicals, Facebook under Ace Comicals, Instagram where we are Ace Comicals. You will find our contact email address, which is acecomicals@gmail.com. So if you want to get in touch, send us a question, you can do it there. Or you can get in touch on Twitter feed. We don't mind. Send us a reply to, send us a question via a DM. Either way, it doesn't matter. You can even send us a message on Facebook if that's your preferred platform. You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Castro. You will find us on WordPress, which is acecomicals.wordpress.com. I will get it the right way around. And you can find me on Twitter under @Batto. That's BATTOU. I say, start a conversation, send me a question. If you have any questions for the cast, we will answer them on the next episode. Ray, where can we find you?
Yeah, best way is Twitter at Monkeh. So that's at Moonkeh.
Yep, and please subscribe on iTunes and do leave us a review. Tell us what we're doing right, and if we're doing something wrong, tell us what we're doing wrong, because we'd love some feedback. And that has been Ace Comicals number 33. So that's Ace Comicals, over and out.